We're always told that things like democracy and social safety nets are the absolute bedrock for a country's success. But what if that's all wrong? Or at least, what if the timing is wrong? Today, we are diving deep into investor Ruchir Sharma's very different playbook for how nations really build wealth. And trust me, his ideas are going to challenge a lot of what you think you know.
And boom, right there, that's the core of his entire argument. It's a really provocative statement. Sharma is basically saying that for a nation on the rise, building out a big welfare state too soon isn't just a small stumble, it's a critical error that can stop economic growth dead in its tracks.
All right, so if that's the big what not to do, then what is the right move? Let's get into it and unpack Sharma's playbook for what he argues is the proven, if difficult, path to prosperity.
Okay, so the first piece of this puzzle is something Sharma calls the freedom trade-off. The idea is that every single developing nation eventually comes to this huge fork in the road, and the path they take, it all comes down to a choice they have to make between two very different kinds of freedom.
So think about it like this. On one hand, you've got political freedom. The right to vote, to protest, the whole deal. Think of a vibrant democracy like India. But on the other hand, you have economic freedom, the right to start a business, to invest, to compete, all with as little government getting in your way as possible. Sharma's whole point is that the economic superstars, places like Singapore and China, made a very deliberate, very strategic choice. They prioritized economic freedom first to light the fuse on their growth.
And look, that choice to put economic freedom at the top of the list, it wasn't just some abstract philosophical idea. It led to a very specific and, often pretty harsh formula that became the engine for those economic miracles we saw all across East Asia.
And when Sharma uses the word ruthless, he is not kidding. Just look at this number. In the 90s, China laid off 90 million workers from their old state-run companies. There was no safety net, no welfare to catch them. The message was brutally simple: go figure it out. Go find a job, start something, do whatever it takes. It was pure, raw, unfiltered competition.
So this whole strategy really comes down to three key pillars. First, the government's job was simple: build the stage, get the roads, the ports, the power grid ready so that private business could perform. Second, and this is crucial, they held off on creating a welfare state, and that directly led to the third pillar, a culture of absolutely ruthless competition, not just at home, but on the world stage.
And that right there brings us full circle, back to the trade-off. It perfectly explains why, in Sharma's view, a country like India is what it is. It's a democracy. The people would never ever stand for that kind of ruthless model. And so, India has made its choice. The result? Solid, respectable 6% growth, but not that explosive 9 or 10% escape velocity that we saw in East Asia.
Okay, but let's be real. What's the point of all this ruthless growth anyway? At the end of the day, the ultimate goal, the dream that every person has, is social mobility, right? The chance to have a better life than your parents did.
Well, this is where things get really tricky, and it's all captured in this fascinating idea called the Great Gatsby Curve. What it shows is that the more unequal a country is when it comes to income, the harder it is for people to actually climb the ladder. And the craziest part, the real kicker, people in those very unequal societies often have the strongest belief in meritocracy, that anyone can make it if they just work hard. It's a total paradox.
And this gets to the absolute core of Sharma's philosophy. The goal of a capitalist system isn't to make sure everyone crosses the finish line at the same time. That's equal outcomes, and the system just isn't built for it. No, the real goal is to make sure everyone gets to line up at the same starting line, with a genuinely fair shot to run the race. That's equal opportunity. So how do you actually build that kind of society? Well, Sharma points to three huge levers you can pull. First, you stop bailing out huge failing companies. Let them fail. That clears the field for new, innovative players. Second, you wage war on red tape and deregulate to help the little guys, the small and medium-sized businesses. And third, you tackle housing affordability by massively increasing supply, not with subsidies, but by just building more places for people to live.
All right, so let's take all this theory and bring it right back down to earth. What does this playbook actually mean for a country like India today? Sharma has some very specific and pretty bold ideas.
He's got this one really powerful, kind of out there solution that he boils down into a single, super memorable phrase.
Doge for India. And no, we're not talking about the meme coin, I promise. It's actually an acronym for a policy idea that he thinks could completely unleash India's entrepreneurial power.
DOGE. It stands for Deregulation of Government Enforcement.
Just think about that for a second. Imagine just slashing the thousands of insane, complex rules that only giant corporations with armies of lawyers can possibly figure out. This isn't just about cutting a little red tape, it's about bulldozing it to level the playing field, so the small, hungry businesses actually have a fighting chance.
And that's not all. The other massive engine Sharma sees for India is cranking up what he calls competitive federalism. So instead of one top-down set of rules from the central government, you create a real marketplace of policies, where all of India's states are actively competing against each other to attract the best companies and the brightest people. The central government's job? Just cheer them on and let the best ideas win.
Okay, so now let's pull the lens all the way back, because none of this is happening in a vacuum. There is a massive shift going on in the global economic order right now. Just take a look at this chart. It shows something Sharma is paying very close attention to. For a decade, the U.S. stock market was the undisputed king of the world. It crushed everything. But now, the rest of the world is fighting back, and in last year, it's actually started to outperform. He thinks this could be the very beginning of a long-term reversal.
And this all leads to his big punchline on the global economy. In his view, that decade-long party of American exceptionalism is winding down. He argues that right now, the only really compelling reason for an investor to be super concentrated in the U.S. market is the AI boom. Outside of that single story, he believes the better opportunities for growth are now spread out across the rest of the world.
So that leaves us with one last massive question to think about. As the old economic rulebook gets thrown out the window, is it the nations that are willing to take a different path, a more contrarian path, like the one Sharma lays out for India, that will be the ones to write the next great chapter of global growth?